Hello, I'm Esme Murphy, and this is Talking Points. Domestic violence groups across the region are struggling to determine how they will survive after President Trump has put funding for domestic violence and sexual assault aid in his cost-cutting crosshairs. Tonight in Talking Points, we will look at how one of the biggest centers in Minnesota is buckling under the financial pressure and the uncertainty of continued funding. The Tubman Center provides help to more than 18,000 women, children, and men every year in the form of shelter, housing, and legal assistance. Under the proposed cuts from President Trump, the Tubman Center this year is poised to lose 30% of its $4 million revenue stream. The cuts are already happening. Joining us now is Jen Polzin, the CEO of Tubman. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And the cuts, technically, you're ready for them. You're getting ready for them. But this is money that's already been allocated that you've been told you might not get.
Correct.
Okay. How does that work? I mean, how can you begin to plan for that?
Well, it's a bit like driving with one foot on the gas and one on the brake, right? Okay. We're preparing for all of these different contingencies, and things are changing and evolving every single day. Okay. So it is really hard to plan, and we are trying to adjust and identify exactly which services will have to scale back.
For those who are unfamiliar with Tubman, you've been around for 50 years. Tell us what you do. Again, 18,000 people, a lot of families, a lot of children helped by you. Tell us what you do.
So we provide emergency shelter for survivors and their families, longer-term housing, mental and chemical health services, tons of legal protections, including orders for protection, attorney representation, all kinds of mental and chemical health support, and then lots of youth programming. So it's everything from prevention in the schools to youth intervention to housing for youth, a youth drop-in center, and all kinds of wraparound services.
And in terms of the funding cut, this is money that's already been allocated for this year, which Correct. Is, and you're actually in the same boat as many other organizations that have, apart from your issue, this is happening across the board with so many groups and organizations and even government agencies. Do you have any idea if and when the hammer might drop?
So we've tried to identify different inflection points because the money has already been allocated. So we were prepared in the event of the government shutting down. Continuing resolutions only last so long. That's one marker. Another is that any day now, we could get new grant agreements sent to us that we would have to certify in order to accept the funds that have already been given to us.
And is that a process? Or?
It is a process. Okay. It has never happened. We've already signed them all. But if new agreements and stipulations come down that could limit who we serve based on their cultural background or identity, that would be another challenge for us.
One of the issues that you're ensnared in is that you are somehow being put under the DEI umbrella, which obviously the Trump administration is trying to get rid of. What do you mean exactly? That there might be limits on who you might be able to help?
So we obviously serve in the name of the abolitionist Harriet Tubman, and our equity work is woven into every single thing that we do. But if there are limitations that are telling us that we cannot serve people who are immigrants or refugees or who identify as transgender, or that we cannot provide culturally specific services, that really limits our effectiveness. And at Tubman, our board has stood firm and said that we cannot limit who we serve based on who we are. Our very mission is all about safety, hope, and healing for everyone.
Can you give us an example of one of the kinds of gender-specific or group-specific programs that you have?
So, for example, in our safety project, we partner with other organizations like the Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota or Esperanza United, just as two examples, where we work together to provide legal representation in really complicated cases where someone's ability to remain in the United States or to have their children remain here with them might be dependent on the very person who is abusive to them.
What would you like people to know about your situation? I've heard you describe it in a news conference with a whole bunch of other groups that help people all over the state as a 5-alarm fire. What would you like people to know, and is there any way they can help?
Absolutely. Get involved. Please contact your elected officials and let them know that these limits are devastating to our community safety net. There are ways that you can follow action alerts. There are organizations like Tubman that could use your volunteer support, your financial support. Our community and supporter, everyone is so generous, and we realize that the pressures are mounting for everyone.
And how about staff? I mean,
yeah, so
this big a cut, if it comes through,
this big a cut is going to absolutely affect our staff. Already organizations like ours are finding folks are, because of the uncertainty, are looking for jobs elsewhere. And we've worked really hard to recruit and retain the most qualified staff.
So you might lose
people
even before this happens.
Even before it happens. We know that if these cuts happen just at Tubman, at one organization of many, we would be looking at cutting our legal services by up to a third, by cutting our shelter beds greatly by about a third.
In abusive relationships, I know that you provide legal services for them to let them know what their options are, because that's part of the problem, isn't it?
Yes.
That people don't realize that there is help out there, or there has been help, and that they are due that help.
Yes, and it's a really complicated system to navigate if you don't have someone walking alongside you.
I know you also help families, and housing is a big part of what you do, because people leaving a violent situation have no place to go. That's one of their great fears. They'll be on the street.
Right.
What happens to the housing part of this?
So we've been working hard to expand our longer-term housing options in the community. So we provide supportive services and rental assistance for people for up to 2 years while they increase their income and their longer-term stability. The challenge is that many landlords are already saying, because housing and urban development HUD dollars and housing assistance is in jeopardy, they aren't able to take a chance on the people that we serve. So some of our clients and survivors are being turned away from housing opportunities because of the threat of these federal funds being reduced.
Wow, is that happening in other sectors as well?
Yes.
People, if you can explain that.
Yeah, so in the housing world, as one example, because we commit to assisting with that rent for up to 2 years, it means there's a lot of exposure. And so right now we are no longer accepting people into that housing program.
Where are people going?
Well, there are certainly emergency shelters, although many of them are reducing their shelter beds right now because of this crisis as well.
Okay. And I know that you've worked, I know that people, Minnesota legislators, including obviously Senators Tina Smith and Amy Klobuchar, are big advocates in this area. Are they able to help at all? Obviously, they're Democrats.
Well, so these are issues that have no political affiliation, right? We have bipartisan support.
Apparently they do.
Well, we are seeing that people are not maybe being as vocal as they once were. I think we're seeing people are still supporting our issues and are following party lines in terms of supporting the administration's cuts.
Well, Jen Polzin, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and we'll continue to follow this, because this is a big deal. This really affects so many, 18,000 people that you folks help every year. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that does it for this edition of Talking Points. Please feel free to reach out and email me with comments and suggestions at esme@cbs.com. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Esme Murphy, WCCO News.